Alright, welcome to my second video. We're going to talk a little bit more about this 85 ATC 250 ES, and hopefully it will help you to maintain yours or fix whatever problems you may have. In my first video we talked a little bit about some upgrades and things I'd done to this bike, and of course amongst them are wheels and new tires, more modern things that you'll have more options for, speedometer, homemade bracket, that kind of thing. We'll talk some more about those too. In any event, since I made that last video, I followed a friend of mine out into some deep grass, and we were going about 25-30 miles an hour, and I hit an old stump bed, and I popped up and over and then came down really hard on it with all my weight, and I have effectively bent my rear swing arm. At least that's what everybody's debating about. Several people have said, no, you bent your frame. No, you bent your fork head. Well, I believe it's my rear swing arm, so I've got another swing arm. In any event, what we're looking at here is, if you can look at that right fender, you can see how it's kind of in and up high. And then if you look at the left fender, you can see it's kind of down and sticks out over the tire, and it's a little bit lower. So if we look at it head on, you can kind of see we're leaning a bit. So that's the goal, is to fix this. Anyway, let's talk about the things you're going to need to replace this swing arm. Just to look at this swing arm, you can't really tell. I know it's kind of dark on my phone. You can't really tell that it's bent just from looking at it, but you can certainly tell when you stand back, right? The three things you're going to need are a new swing arm. I found this new old stock swing arm with some nice paint on it, and it's got a little shelf wear on it, but otherwise never been used, nice and new, no rust, no dirt. I think I paid about $50 for it, maybe less. Pretty cool. The next thing you need is a swing arm bearing kit. All Balls makes one that fits several different models of three-wheeler, as you can see on there. Also, there's a bunch of 4-tracks models on there too. It is an AB281056. All Balls makes good stuff. I've used them for just about everything. When I rebuilt the front end of this bike, when I rebuilt all the inner axle bearings and everything, I used All Balls. So I really like them. In there you have one set of bearings for each side of the bike. You've got some seals and some inner seals. The next thing you're going to need, and by the way, I bought all these on eBay. eBay is the best place to find ATC 250 ES parts. This is a special tool. It has a castellated end, and it has a male Allen wrench end. You've got to remove the castellated locking nut that's inside the swing arm. I think it's on the right hand side. Anyway, a lot of people like to use big screwdrivers or chisels, and they start whacking away on it and they mess it up and they can't get it out. If you've done that, I feel bad for you. Anyway, you need this tool. This tool's like $35 or something on eBay. Kind of nice. We're going to kind of put it to the test. I've never even used it, as you can see. The next thing and final thing that you're going to need is probably some penetrating oil, maybe a heat gun. Always have a heat gun when you work on old bikes. And you're also going to need some like blue marine grade grease, so that you can seal everything up and pack everything full of grease. You know, keep it all waterproof so that it lasts a long time. In any event, we'll talk more about that, and we'll go step by step through it in the next video. Thanks for watching. Alright, welcome back. We're going to start by taking off the wheels. You can see that we've already set up some jack stands to support it right now. I'm sure we're going to have to move them. The front end seems to be off the ground just a little bit. That's kind of to be expected. Alright, now the next thing, let's talk about these wheels here. This is kind of what somebody's going to want to know. These are 14x8s. I went to a used tire store and I found my first one, and that got my wheels spinning. Ha ha ha. Okay. Anyway, I bought the rest of them after I bought some 2-inch thick. These are 110 by 4 bolt pattern, and this is the part number for the wheels. So there's the hard stuff done for you. Okay, that's the part number for the SS ITP wheels. Now we're going to take these wheels off. And when we come back, we are going to remove the wheel spacers, which you don't have to mess with. If you're going to take off your original wheels, you'll need a 17mm socket. I like a long extension because it's just easier to get to. Okay, so we've got our wheel off, and now I'm going to take off my wheel spacer. And I'm going to set the emergency brake so that my axle doesn't turn. Alright, so I've got my wheel spacer off. You can see it's a pretty nice quality one. It's dirty, but it's well loved. We're going to take out this cotter pin here. If it looks pretty nasty, then, or too like it's going to break, then you might want to replace them. They don't cost anything. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to tackle this nut here, which should be fun. If you're like me, you really like these hubs torqued down really tight. This nut loose, but now we're going to go ahead and take it off. You can see that in the past when I built this, I used a really large washer so that I could have just a little more pressure on these hubs. Well, and of course it doesn't want to be nice to me. I'll probably get a rubber mallet or something to get this off of here, but more than likely it'll come off without a problem. I've only had to use a hub puller once on one of these bikes, and that's after it sat for a long time. Anyway, I'll get this off. Let's go around to the other side of the bike and we will look at what it takes to take that hub off. Okay, so now I have had to use my own impact driver. If you don't have one of these, they're like 20 bucks at AutoZone or O'Reilly or whatever. I've got like the biggest one I could put on here and use. I whacked it a couple times and it came loose. It's probably been a year since I've been in here and did my brakes. But once you take out those, once you take those out and you take off that center nut, it may help to move around your brake to get this off of here. You can see somebody before me beat the snot out of this thing to get it off. Anyway, sometimes they take some playing with, but this one looks like it's about to come off. Okay. After working it back and forth and loosening the adjustment nuts on the brake cables a little bit more, twisting it back and forth, and I managed to get the brake hub off. And you can see, pretty typical. Not too bad. Once again, I've seen lots worse than that. Looks pretty good. Here's our brakes. You can see it's full of nasty stuff. You can tell it wasn't too long ago I was in there. You can tell what color the grease is. Now the hub came right off, and the bearing surface looks pretty good. Next, we're going to take these cables off. And the way that we do that is by removing these brake cables, these adjusters. And all you have to do is make sure you hold one side. Unless yours are really old and they're rusty, you might want to spray them with some penetrating oil. This should come right off just like this. And next we're going to take the bottom one off. The brake shoes are after that. And then we'll take off the brake panel itself from the swing arm. Okay, so now we're going to take off this brake panel. The first thing we did was we took off these adjusting nuts and springs. So once we got the springs out of the way, we can pull this rubber down. You may not have rubber on yours anymore, but don't know. Anyway, take that off. Just kind of move these out of the way and expose the cable. Slide them through those little reliefs right there. Move those cables out of your way. Take your breather hose off. If you don't have one, I recommend that you get one. Mine's on there really good. There are 4 17mm nuts, just like what holds your wheels on. And you're going to take those 4 off here. You're going to find that you have to use an extension because of the way it's put together. So you're going to use an extension to reach it. Unless you use a really short 17. Mine happens to be pretty deep. Oh, and I've got one left. It's hiding from me. You can see the brake panel is about to come off here. So now our hub and our brake panel are removed on both sides. And you can see the next thing that we're going to tackle is taking off this trailer hitch. We're going to just take off this bottom half of the shock and my little lift there, my 1.5-inch lift I got on eBay. Go ahead and raise the fenders, remove the side panels, get the seat off. The next thing that needs to happen is this axle needs to come out. Put this down for just a sec so we can get a good view of it. The hubs are gone, the brake panel is gone, right? The axle will exit to the right. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to take a 2x4, and so that I'm taking care not to mess up the threads on the end of this axle, a little whack. You can see it's gone in some. It comes out the other side here, and you can still see there's fresh grease in there. Looks pretty good. Now what we want to do is pull it out and get it out of the way. You can see I really greased it when I put it in there. So we'll go ahead and we'll pull this axle out. Alright, and I'll set that to the side. Alright, so now if we can get some light, which looks like we can, we're going to remove this trailer hitch here. There are 4 bolts, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. They're 14mm. We're going to get these off, and we're going to simply loosen this bottom shock bolt. We're not going to take it all the way out yet. We're just going to loosen it. And the reason we're going to loosen it is because we want the rear end to be, the swing arm, to be supported when we go to remove our side bolts, you know, with that special tool that I showed you.